Last week in Michigan politics, early voting is now open statewide for Michigan's primary election. After a week of big names and big news from the campaign trail, we have the details. Plus, new laws from the governor's desk this week surrounding housing, Amber Alerts, and the new state budget. Details on what was signed. And a West Michigan city official put on administrative suspension pending investigation that had federal and state authorities swarming the city hall. What we're told the investigation was about. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on your side rundown. Off the top this week with Your Voice, Your Vote. Michigan's all-important primary election is now less than 2 weeks away. And early in-person voting is now open statewide as of July 25th. That option's only been around in Michigan for a short time now, however, so before you head out to early vote, if that's the method you choose, you want to keep some important information in mind. Early in-person voting will kick off across the state on Saturday, and it's still a pretty new option, only being put into our Michigan Constitution following a statewide vote back in 2022. As part of that amendment, all Michigan voters now have the option to vote on one of at least 9 days of early in-person voting for statewide and federal elections, ending the Sunday before Election Day. So we're breaking down what you need to know before you go. Probably the biggest thing is that you shouldn't necessarily assume that you would be going to the same location you would if you regularly voted on Election Day. Some places like the city of Grand Rapids, Ottawa County, and Muskegon County coming up with what are usually called consolidated early voting sites. That means people from larger areas, sometimes in completely different towns, will all have early voting in the same spot. And in a place like Grand Rapids, voters living in the city there will have a choice between 3 different locations. So it's important to check beforehand where your site or sites are before heading out. And what will you need to bring to early voting? Well, just like on Election Day, you'll want to bring with you an accepted form of photo ID that can include things like a driver's license or a state-issued ID. If you do not bring one, you'll be asked to fill out a form saying you are this person and you live here. Making a false statement on that form is a perjury offense. From there, it's like voting on Election Day, where you can vote the ballot and then can put it in the machine. Early in-person sites are required to be open each of those 9 days for at least 8 hours a day. And we should note that you do need to be registered to vote beforehand, which this close to the primary can only be done in person at your local clerk's office with proof of residency. To find exactly where your early in-person site or sites are, what's on your specific local ballot, and more important election information, you can go to michigan.gov/vote. And top news from the campaign trail, former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox has ended his campaign for governor. Cox says President Trump's endorsement of John James gave his opponent an advantage he could not overcome. Cox says he will now join the effort to get James elected in November. Businessman Perry Johnson continues to campaign. And President Trump is coming to Michigan on Monday, the week before the primary election. The White House confirming he is expected at General Motors in Milford. That's in Oakland County on the state's east side. His visit is expected to center on manufacturing and the auto industry. And it comes as early in-person voting, as we mentioned, has begun this weekend in our battleground state. President Trump has endorsed Republican gubernatorial candidate Representative John James, who will face businessman Perry Johnson in the primary. And in Democratic waters, there were some major political figures in Grand Rapids this past Sunday. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joining U.S. Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed at DeVos Hall for a rally. 13 on your side's Peter Elliott was there.
Hello, Grand Rapids! Thank you, Grand Rapids!
A pair of progressive powerhouses introducing someone who could be the next.
Good evening, West Michigan!
U.S. Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed rallying with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Sunday night.
They tell me there's no way I can win, but they ain't been to West Michigan.
It was the trio's third stop across the battleground state, with a little more than 2 weeks to go before primary day.
When Abdul is elected to the Senate, he will work with me and other progressives to stand up to the greed of the billionaire class.
The rally drew a crowd of more than 2,600 people in a venue with a name that El Sayed acknowledged.
I relish the irony that we're doing this in the DeVos Center. I think it is high past time that the billionaires get taxed on their wealth.
He hopes to become the latest in a wave of progressive candidates across the country who have won major races.
The entire country is watching this election, so there's an enormous responsibility on your shoulders.
El Sayed touching on a range of issues, but never straying far from his signature campaign line, now a call and response chant.
Money out of, money in your, Medicare for.
The former Wayne County health chief drew a sharp contrast with his Democratic primary challenger, Haley Stevens, over American military support for Israel.
Excuse me, if I don't want to send their money to a foreign government to foreclose on Palestinian rights and do genocide and apartheid, I want to keep it here.
Stevens, the suburban Detroit congresswoman, is seen as the moderate in the race, endorsed by outgoing Senator Gary Peters.
Progressives have been defeating establishment candidates all across America. And whether they like it or not, we're going to win here in Michigan.
Days after those names visited our area, El Sayed's primary opponent, Congresswoman Stevens, secured a big-name endorsement. Governor Gretchen Whitmer endorsed Stevens on Friday, saying Stevens knows what Michigan families are going through and will always put Michigan first. More on that development is on our website, 13onyourside.com. And as the election season gets closer, 13 on Your Side has been talking with the candidates to help inform you, the voter, about your choices and where they stand. One of the major statewide offices on the ballot later this year, Secretary of State, as the current office holder, Jocelyn Benson, is term limited. After he switched from the governor's race to this one, we sat down with the candidate endorsed by the Michigan Democratic Party.
Garland Gilchrist.
It's a name that's been heard a lot in statewide politics over the last 8 years. Now, the software engineer by training and current lieutenant governor is running to be Secretary of State on what he sees as a background of relevant experience.
At a time when technology poses so many challenges and opportunities and anxieties for people, I think it's important that we have leaders who actually understand how to use that stuff to work for people and to protect people from its harms.
Gilchrist views his task, if elected, as building on a foundation that's already been laid and growing from there.
We need to make sure that we're expanding the kiosk program that makes kiosks available in Meyer and other locations. We need to make sure that people can use online services effectively and bring things online that make sense to bring online for convenience purposes. I think Michigan should be one of the 20 states that does digital IDs as an option for people.
Gilchrist secured his party's endorsement in mid-April, as it seeks to keep all 3 major statewide offices in Democratic hands.
I think that voters should have one question for the Secretary of State. Are you going to show up for me, or are you going to only be responsive to, your political overlords in Washington?
Among the Secretary's biggest duties is overseeing the state's elections.
We have to have a Secretary of State that makes sure to protect your right to vote, to use that tool, that power, to fix the systems that are failing you, to vote the big money out of our politics that's skewing politicians' priorities, to vote to protect our environment and be stewards of our water, to vote to be able to bring down prices and bring health care and child care to more people.
Now, to make general election candidacies for some offices like this one official, parties will still have to nominate candidates at another round of conventions following the August primaries. The Democrats is set for August 29th. And after a long road to the finish line and last year's standoff, state lawmakers have agreed to a new state budget for next year. Coming up, details on the new budget signed just this week and how the state will spend your taxpayer dollars. After a long road of negotiation and uncertainty, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has signed the next state budget into law. According to legislative documents, the budget, which House and Senate fiscal agency analyses say includes roughly $75 billion for next year, includes things like new road funding, new costs to get the state up to speed with new Medicaid and SNAP work requirements, and continued funding for universal public school meals. While lawmakers still missed the legal July 1st deadline, they did manage to get the new budget into law ahead of the start of the next fiscal year. Unlike last year's process, schools know what funding is coming their way this year before students return to the classroom. The next fiscal year will begin on October 1st. Governor Whitmer traveled to Grand Rapids this week to sign a new package of housing bills aimed at helping in building and refurbishing homes across Michigan. The governor's office says the legislation establishes a new state-level housing tax credit to help increase affordable housing options, cut red tape, and limit institutional investors from buying up single-family homes. The tax credit is expected to create housing for thousands more people. Governor Whitmer also signed the Rowan Act this week, expanding what Michigan investigators can do to find and protect missing and endangered children. The act is named after Rowan Morey, a 6-year-old who was killed after being taken by his father during a custody dispute. The act broadens the state's Amber Alert system to help quickly alert the public when a child with special needs goes missing, or when state police believe any missing child could be in danger. Previously, the Amber Alert law only covered child abductions that met certain requirements. Rowan's mother, Brandy Morey Pohl, said in a statement that she hopes the act will become a model for the nation. The future of the massive Electric Forest Music Festival in Rothbury is a concern for people who feel safety must be addressed. After the break, the concerns they took to local leaders, including an effort to halt the festival from taking place there until certain demands are met. In Muskegon County, multiple federal and state agencies spent the bulk of Thursday at Muskegon Heights City Hall, investigating what the county prosecutor called an investigation into potential drug and financial crimes. 13 on your side's Michael Martin spent that day gathering the details.
A busy day in Muskegon County Thursday as numerous state and federal agencies moved in and out of Muskegon Heights City Hall, quietly removing boxes, documents. Why they were there wasn't immediately clear, but by mid-afternoon, Muskegon County Prosecutor DJ Hilson provided a small amount of clarity. Federal and state law enforcement agencies executed multiple search warrants throughout Muskegon County as part of an active investigation, he said in part. He continued, "This is an active financial and drug crime investigation. Therefore, our ethical duties, as well as protecting the integrity of this investigation, limit our ability at this time to disclose specific details." Agents with the IRS, FBI, and DEA all on scene Thursday, serving warrants at 4 addresses in total. Just after 4:30 p.m. Thursday, Muskegon Heights City Attorney released a statement saying representatives from their office were present during the search at City Hall to, quote, observe the process and assist in ensuring that the legal rights and protections afforded to city officials and employees were respected. Though they followed that up by saying their presence should not be interpreted as, quote, a statement regarding the investigation, the allegations, or any individual or entity involved. Muskegon Heights Fire Chief and current interim city manager Shonderick Robertson told 13 on Your Side late Thursday that he believed the warrants served were related to a, quote, forensic audit. Michael Martin, 13 on Your Side.
On Friday, the city attorney's office saying Roberson was put on administrative suspension with pay pending the outcome of investigation and review, though they clarified that the action was administrative and shouldn't be taken as a, quote, determination of wrongdoing. The city's police chief has taken over as acting city manager. The data center divide in Lowell Township is not closing, it seems. The debate over a Microsoft data center there remains heated, and this past week, a billboard against the proposed project was vandalized. 13 on Your Side's Jordan Hatfield was at a meeting in Lowell Township on Monday where the data center project wasn't on the agenda, but it still came up.
My name's Joe Hancock. I'm Virgins Township. Probably shouldn't be here, but... Trust me, wait till you hear what I say.
Another Lowell Township board meeting.
I will not take the advice from people who don't know things, so.
Can you let him speak? Hey, be more respectful. Let this person speak.
Getting intense Monday night. During the first public comment period, the vast majority of the crowd speaking out against a proposed Microsoft data center, directing much of their ire at board members, calling for transparency.
There's been documentation after documentation after documentation of lack of transparency, hidden agendas.
There is a lot of issues with conflicts of interest. The message from the overwhelming majority of participating residents has been unmistakable. We do not want this project.
The crowd getting riled when a man living outside the township tried to defend the project.
That's right. You hear all the BS on water usage. There's no water usage. Boy, oh boy, no wonder you guys don't speak out to these things. You know what? You people all need a little lesson. And you really need some planners. You need to learn some manners.
People like Rob Schroeder say, by their standards, this was a quiet meeting.
Lowell is against the Microsoft data center proposal, 100%.
Though perhaps not everyone. As the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. Someone covered up part of the message on a billboard, changing their anti-data center message into, quote, "We want a data center there," unquote. This is allegedly a picture of the suspect after they covered that part of the sign with paper or vinyl. The covering was removed the same day, but those fighting the data center, like Jennifer Stewart Dodson, were taken aback.
I was shocked that someone would go this far to deface the billboard and our property, and to really try to taint the message of the Lowell citizens.
Schroeder says it's disheartening.
First it was stolen yard signs, and now it's escalated to vandalized billboards. We'd like to find out who's responsible for that.
And later on this week, that billboard was gone. It was replaced with a new billboard about veterans. No reason was given immediately for the removal of the billboard. A vandalism report was filed with the Kent County Sheriff's Department. Village leaders in Rothbury heard from those concerned over safety at the Electric Forest Music Festival. With concerns and the recent attention surrounding a baby found in a porta potty this year, some feel for the festival to continue, things must shift. Even in the chamber of village government, it's on display just how much electric forest plays a part in Rothbury. And from public comment to the village council Tuesday night, it was clear the effect went well beyond village borders.
My family owns restaurants that people hit on the way out of town. Okay, we all benefit from this. I don't want it to go away. I just want it to be better.
Now there's an effort to halt the massive annual music festival that, according to a past letter from the former village president, had been the source of over half of the village's annual revenue.
This is not about shutting down the festival.
Mike Lewis is supporting the petition, saying they've gathered over 1,000 signatures on a petition. Lewis aims to get the village to only permit the festival if certain conditions are met.
We are asking this village to hold the permit until, one, they give our sheriff full authority over the electric forest as far as the searches go, and as far as the safety plan that is involved with electric forest. We want the MSP to be up underneath our sheriff as well.
And he wasn't alone in speaking out. While she made no mention of law enforcement, Catherine Marcoux felt the festival should be fixed.
It's transformed and it's evolved and it's scaled up to this huge entity. So part of my heart says they need to scale back, right? Like, we've gotten too big.
But not everyone was pleased with protest over the event's handling.
This thing, from when it started to where it is today, is a lot better event than what it used to be.
Lewis said the tipping point was after a newborn baby was found dead in a porta potty at the festival. Authorities have been continuing their investigation. At the beginning of Tuesday's meeting, the council president said they would not comment on the case, but did offer a statement.
The council is committed to allowing the investigative process to run its course. It would be premature to draw conclusions, engage in speculation, or take action before all of the facts are known, and we will not do so. We understand that this is deeply frustrating for many in our community, and we do not take this frustration lightly. Your desire for answers and accountability is heard, and it is shared.
A major bridge between Michigan and Canada is expected to open this coming week. But after recent action from Washington, it's expected to come with a lot less fanfare. What's reportedly causing the rift between the U.S. and its northern neighbor? That's next. A joint U.S.-Canada ceremony to celebrate the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge was canceled. That's according to the Associated Press, which said Canadian officials canceled the joint celebration after President Trump announced new 50% tariffs on some Canadian goods. A spokesperson for the Canadian infrastructure minister told the AP it would be inappropriate to proceed with a celebratory event after the president's move. Other disagreements had delayed the opening date until the two countries reached an agreement earlier this month. The bridge from Detroit to Windsor was still expected to open this coming Monday. And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com.